Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Apple Gaming SE. This is Apple News and Opinion for January 14th through January 20th, 2024. First things first, new subs this week. I lost a sub, unfortunately, but then I got two more. So I'm back up past my 68 up to 69. So I guess we'll say an aggregate of plus one sub. But thank you both to my two new subscribers, one of whom is Benami Swift. So thank you for subscribing. Go check out his accordion videos on his channel. First story of the week is that Apple will allow third parties in the EU to access the iPhone NFC chip, and that the Apple Pay competitor apps are coming, but regulators are asking whether people want more. This is coming from Apple Insider and 9to5Mac. The quote I have from Apple to the Wall Street Journal is, quote, "Through our ongoing discussions with the European Commission, we have offered commitments to provide third-party developers in the European Economic Area with an option that will enable their users to make NFC contactless payments from within their iOS apps, separate from Apple Pay and Apple Wallet." End quote. I have to wonder if the Tim Cook meeting with the EU regulator a couple weeks ago had anything to do with this. Perhaps the EU said something to the effect of, you go ahead and allow this now, and in exchange we'll give you a break elsewhere. Maybe, just speculation. However, this is going to stay exclusive to the EU for now. In 2017, the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission denied the Australian bank's boycott of Apple's NFC tech, so there's a little evidence that this isn't going to be a sweeping change across the globe. Apple has some successes elsewhere in the world. Within the United States, the Department of Justice is expected to launch their lawsuits against Apple this year. They've had an investigation going for years already, but the rumors are that it's officially expected to start in March or April. So Apple does have some rocky weather coming up this year for them in the United States. That said, the forthcoming changes to the EU will work worldwide with banks that have been registered with the European Economic Area. So if your bank is an EEA bank, you can spend your euros anywhere in the world, and as it stands, this looks like a 10-year access agreement. The Masimo CEO says that the Apple Watch blood oxygen sensor is not reliable and that customers are better off without it, which is kind of surprising. So the Apple Watch 9 and the Ultra 2 are back on the market, but without the blood oxygen sensor, also known as the oximeter. I thought Apple was going to drag this out, basically this whole thing out as long as they could in the hopes of getting a deal struck with Masimo. I guess the $3 per watch licensing fee that Masimo wanted for its technology is just too much for Apple. Though, if I had to guess, it's less about the licensing fee and more about keeping the sales figures of the Apple Watch a secret. See, if Apple agreed to those terms, when Masimo declares their yearly earnings, everyone is going to have a pretty good idea of how many Apple Watch 9s and Ultra 2s are sold during the year. Not precisely, granted, but Apple long ago stopped reporting their exact sales figures, so they have an air of mystery about them when it comes to overall unit sales for everything: Macs, iPhones, iPads, so on and so forth. The Masimo CEO says that the Apple Watch is, quote, "is not reliable," end quote, because the blood oxygen sensor doesn't run all night, but their forthcoming W1 watch does. So this is definitely a sales tactic, which, fair enough, this is a capitalist economy after all. My issue is that they're saying that consumers are better off entirely without the Apple Watch. I mean, considering how good all of the other sensors are and how much more reliable they are compared to everything else, as far as the consumer products go, again, we're not talking about medical grade equipment here, well, I can't call him a hack because he's the CEO of the company, so it just comes off as a bad take. I mean, I'm sure he believes his engineers and product designers teams are the best, but my point is, even without the oximeter, the Apple Watch is overall a much better product than the current vaporware status of their W1 watch. Tons and tons and tons of news this week as the Vision Pro went on sale. So the Vision Pro battery life, this is coming from 9to5Mac. Here's what we expect: 2 hours of general use, 2.5 hours of video usage. The Vision Pro can be used while charging the battery with the included 5 foot or 1.5 meter USB-C cable, and there's a 30 watt USB-C power adapter that comes in the box. This all seems pretty reasonable to me. The headset is heavier than most others out there, I grant you that. And as someone who dabbled in VR, which I admit was all cool as heck, I can see wearing this thing for more than 2 hours to be a real neck strain. And my favorite meme this week is the Apple Vision neck brace, which allows you to outlast the battery. So that one was a pretty good one going around. I do want to try this for sure, but I don't want to try it for $3,500. It's a first generation product, so the price isn't going to surprise me at $3,500. It's going to need a lot of refinements, and only those willing to pay the price, both financially and probably bodily, need to apply. It's going to get better, and I'm personally excited for whenever we get the Apple Vision SE. But speaking of first generation product woes, we have another story from 9to5Mac and Apple Insider basically on the same topic. Vision Pro apps, why some big brands have entirely opted out. YouTube and Spotify also won't offer any apps on the Vision Pro. So the apps that are being required to be adapted to a VR landscape is definitely a huge barrier to entry. And I have to say, it's not terribly surprising that many are going to sit on the sidelines and wait to see what develops. I mean, I get it. If your app performs poorly or acts strangely on the Vision Pro because, for whatever reason, you're basically going to get the bad PR, right? Like if Safari runs great, but then the YouTube app runs terrible because of some bug that your developers hadn't been able to account for, it looks bad on you, not on the Vision Pro entirely. And what I'm less sure of is why people would block their iPad apps from running on the Vision Pro. I mean, I guess, you can't perfectly develop your app within Xcode's Vision Pro simulator, but you're just begging to have somebody else come in to the market and take a piece of your market share. Granted, Netflix, Spotify, and YouTube are not small players in this sense and can probably trade time for quality, meaning they don't have to be the first in the door because they have such a huge user base. So, and honestly, I don't know, certainly YouTube and Netflix, I don't know about Spotify, how many people from Spotify would cross over into that Vision Pro market at the same time. That basically, I have to agree with 9to5Mac here that despite the petty corporate bickering of Netflix, Spotify, and Apple, the real question is how likely this product category catches on to the mass market appeal. As it stands, it's going to be a while before it catches on to the mass market. Moving on to some good news for Apple. The Apple Hongdae store is now open in South Korea. And man, I tell you, the people in these pictures coming from the Apple newsroom and 9to5Mac are, unsurprisingly, they look super excited. I mean, they have the biggest smiles on their faces, and they really do look like they're all having a great time. And I love the Hongdae store's logo design, so much so that I've got it as the background on my iPhone. And one picture in here and some of the linked pictures on X Twitter have these really cool souvenirs, like little boxes with the Hongdae logo on them, and I really want one. I'll be keeping my eye on eBay for them. But if anyone knows where I might be able to get one secondhand, please let me know. And the opening of the retail store in South Korea kind of rolls nicely into our next topic, which is that Apple ships more smartphones annually than Samsung for the first time, and Apple profits rise 550% in Korea. That is bonkers, and what a headline. I mean, Apple has 20.1% of total worldwide market share, beating Samsung by 0.5 percentage and seeing a respectable growth of 3.7%. And of the top three companies, it is the only one to show positive growth on the year, or year on year. Samsung, meanwhile, took a shocking loss of 13.6%, meaning that 9.9% of their negative growth was from other Android competitors. That S24 line better be something real special, if you know what I mean. If someone made me pick an Android device, I'd be choosing Google for two primary reasons. First, Google makes and maintains the underlying core OS of Android, and the best part of Android's really come to surface on the Pixel line. The second is that Samsung has a lot of bloatware and junk apps in One UI, and some of the stuff that they have isn't even well designed or optimized for that hardware. It would not surprise me if part of the reason for Samsung's precipitous decline is their crapware that's installed. I've tested out some of Samsung's low-end devices on my channel, my other channel, Polymatrix, including devices sold to markets in Eastern Europe and India. And you think the US bloatware is bad? Whew, man. There's so much junk on those entry-level phones that they even run bad themselves, like out of the box. Back to the story though, it seems that the overall geopolitical influences and the realities of macroeconomics is rearing its head again and pressuring the entire global market. Globally, the smartphone sales are down by 3.2%. We're definitely continuing deep into trying economic times, and Apple's big wins over Samsung are largely attributed to the iPhone 14 and iPhone 15 series success. But additionally, other Android vendors are offering lower cost devices in the high-end market, which makes the explosive profit growth of Apple in South Korea all the more confusing. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy for Apple's success, but a 5.5 times growth, or profit growth specifically, is staggering. And kind of when you look past the surface of it, given the sales numbers weren't meaningfully different, this is even more surprising. So the speculation has to be then that the services division saw the biggest growth, which led to such profits. Remember what I said about Samsung's junky bloatware? And this is kind of the same idea. Apple's offering better add-on services than the clickbait style nonsense that Samsung is offering in One UI. There's also a good possibility that there were some previously unrealized gains that were cashed in, or Apple's South Korean partners owed them a lot of money, so they had to pay off their debts, if you will. And what I mean to say is that while Apple's global success and Samsung's faltering in the smartphone sales may be indicative of things to come, it could also very well be a one-off. So that's news for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe if you have not already, and I will look forward to seeing you all in the next one. Take care now. Bye-bye.